It all started with Barb. I got a Barb pop, and her feet are extremely tiny. I bought what I thought was going to be a little stand with the pegs, and it turns out they didn't have pegs, so I just had to glue her to it using some Gorilla Glue, which really puffs out a lot. But at least it helped her stand up a little bit, and I figured I could use this puffiness to maybe make some new stands. The Demogorgon, now this one really had a hard time standing up. So I glued him down, put some extra stuff on it, and really painted it to try to make a scene. I used the lid from a jar candle as a stand for it. Came out pretty good. Definitely looks creepy. So I started going after any other pops that I have that might have had a problem standing, or that I could figure a nice little theme to put in place, such as this noir Spider-Man. His I did, made sure it didn't really seep out too much, so you could barely see the glue on it. And I just tried to give it a nice black and white theme for that. Worked out pretty well. And of course, I had this little cat thing. I forget what they're called, but it's from the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movie. I even put some more pattern on there and these little glow-in-the-dark spots as well. I think this is the first one I used, another kind of clear coat on. And then the Flash. Now this one, just like the Demogorgon, really had a hard time getting him to stand up. It's a very narrow base, and I don't even know how they test if they're going to stand. So, put some more time into kind of drawing something on that so it would look like he's running, add a little bit to it. So, then I got the Doctor. Now with hers, I just really wanted to go for the color scheme. I wanted it to match the orange and yellow kind of crystals that she has in her TARDIS. So I just kind of made these big, like, blobby kind of things around her. Really had to mix up a lot of paint, but I was really happy with how that came out. So always look for opportunities to make some new stands here and there. Now I got Ash. Now Ash, he stands all right, but, he still falls over. He's also got a small footprint. They're kind of tiny. So I've been wanting to make a stand for a while. So got myself another jar candle lid and got some Gorilla Glue like I've used on the other ones. This is going to puff out just like before, and I figure with Ash, I could probably make that work into some sort of a theme with him. So the first thing I need to do is make kind of like a stand for the stand. I'll put in these tacks so that way it has a little bit of lift above whatever table I have it on while I'm working on it. This is so, I don't have to worry as much about if I'm painting something, if it like drips and gets stuck to whatever I have it on. Gives that nice little gap there. So then have to get the Gorilla Glue out, and since he is going to have a little bit more of it kind of bulge out and puff out, I don't really have to worry about putting a tiny bit on there. I can actually put a lot on there, and that'll be fine. It'll help him stay in place. It is going to puff out from underneath his feet, but I just need to kind of line him up, kind of imagine what I want to do with him once he's dried off, or once he's set and dried, and let it sit. It can take a while for it to really get in place. So you can see here now, this has been a while. It's starting to puff out a little bit on the toes. You can see that you can press it and it still kind of moves around a little bit. So it's not completely dry yet. This kind of glue can take quite a while to completely dry. A lot of people don't like it, but partially because it takes a long time and because it puffs out a lot. But if you're using that for the sake of what you're crafting, then it really doesn't matter if it's something that you're going to work into your theme. So I'm going to go ahead and put some more on here, and this is because I want him to look like he's standing in like a pile of blood and guts. So the more of this I can put on there and let it kind of puff out, the better. So I'm just going to kind of smear a lot of this around. Definitely don't use your fingers on this. Use either the tip of the Gorilla Glue bottle, or a paintbrush that you never want to have to use again, because it's going to destroy whatever it touches. This stuff is very messy, very sticky. It's a really, really annoying getting it on your fingers as well. But yes, I'm just going to kind of smear all this in here. This is another reason why it's got those tacks on that stand, is so if anything drips off the side, it's not going to get glued to the table. So yep, got all that glue in place there, and yeah, we're just going to have to let this dry. This could take upwards of 4 hours for everything to completely dry, to really completely puff out and be completely solid. Now after a while, of course, you can see it starts to change color. It's almost like little bubbles start to form within it as it's going through its expansion. You can see at this point it's still extremely sticky. You can see it's just coming off of my finger there. Really gross. But like I said, it takes a lot of time. I left it sitting on here for a few hours. You can see now that it starts to kind of change color again. It's really puffed up. It almost looks like that expansion foam that you can spray inside of places to insulate it. I've also used this on incense bottles to make it look like wax is dripping down the bottles. I just let the glue kind of drip down. So now at this point, it's pretty much where I want it to be. It's no longer sticky to the touch. It's puffed out. It's not quite done setting, but it's getting close. It's at least to the point now where everything's going to be relatively stable, especially around the edges. It's pretty much complete. You can still poke it around if you want to. You can even kind of mold this a little bit, you know, along the way. If you want to reshape some of it as it's setting, you can do that. Just remember, this is always going to be kind of a puffy kind of shape. So it's at that point where I can start painting it. So yeah, that's going to be the next step, to gob all my paint on there and make all the blood and guts come to life. So never throw any supplies away. Some of this stuff here I've had for probably over 10 years. I mean, I've got, you know, this old little mixing plate and everything. I've got this really old brush I've used for all sorts of stuff. And they're all cheap brushes, and they're all cheap paint. You could even see like the varnish coming off of some of these cheap paint brushes. Because I figure if I'm going to be using stuff like that Gorilla Glue or some sort of clear coats and a bunch of old paints, I'm just going to be mixing up. I mean, I even have two of the same paint here, the same exact color, I believe. It doesn't really matter what brush I use. I'm not going for anything very exact or realistic. So just got to kind of pick out what I want to use, what I want to mix together, and then I'm going to start painting this thing. So I'm going to mix up some blue and some red. For the most part, it's going to be red, but I'm going to kind of smear it right on top of, right on top of this glue here. As you can see, even just setting it up, it's getting a little bit harder now, but you can still see that it puffs around. It shouldn't affect how the paint dries on it, though. It's not early enough in the process that it's going to puff through the paint or make any of it come off. So, blood and guts, easiest thing to paint in the world. You're just going to kind of gob that red on. The nice thing about painting this is that you're really just trying to cover up the glue. You don't need to be too exact. You know, you're going to do a couple of layers. Going to go around it a few times, make sure that you don't, miss any areas of that off-white color of the glue kind of sticking out. And just start filling it all in. Now, there are some parts where, you're really just kind of trying to get in these little tiny crevices here and there. You don't want to just smash it all on there, but, just kind of follow the general pattern. Think about the blood and guts. Be the blood and guts. Where would it splatter? What would it look like? Okay, I'm looking way too much into this. Now, these things are a bit easier to paint than some of the incense bottles that I do, mainly because it's all on like a flat surface and everything. But yeah, I'm just kind of filling in every last little gap. I'm trying not to actually get any paint on Ash himself. He's already been kind of decorated the way that the creators want him to be. So anyways, I'm going to mix up a little bit of red and this blue to make kind of like a purplish color. I wanted to get more of that guts look in there so he doesn't look like he's just standing on a pile of paint. I was going to try to maybe make like this veiny looking stuff going through the blood, but it's probably going to be too much detail to try to pull something like that off. So I'm just going to kind of do this to smear around some more, some more pattern into everything, give it a little bit more depth, a little bit more layers. Sometimes if it's something big and flat, I'll just spread out the brush almost to do almost like a sponging technique in a way, to just get that extra little bit of a layer on there. And of course, after a while, you just have to kind of be done with what you're smearing. Just say, I've pretty much gotten what I need on there, and I'll use a little bit of just more regular red to kind of drip around the edges here. Do some of those finer details. So the higher points in it are going to have a little bit more of that purple thrown in there, a little bit more of that dark red, and then it's going to taper off to a little bit of a lighter red dripping off the sides of this. Again, that's why I like putting the little stand that he's on top of its own little stand, so I can paint down the sides and not worry about it getting stuck to anything. And some of these stands, if they're not black like this one and they're wood colored, then I'm going to be painting all the way around the sides, and just makes it a lot easier to kind of get all that work done. Yep, so he's pretty much done for that layer. So you could see here, he's had some time to dry. You can use a blow dryer on it. I haven't really had much issue with that because you really just need that paint to be dried. And it's very flat, really doesn't look as much like the pop. It doesn't have any kind of a shine. That's where the polyurethane comes in. Now this stuff is nasty. This is why I use a foil underneath this stand. This is why I have a lot of paper towels. It smells gross. If it gets on your hands, it's disgusting. It drips everywhere. It's almost got the consistency of water. But I'm just going to slather this stuff on there because it's going to give it a very shiny coat. The only problem, of course, is that once you're done slathering all that on, you have to be careful with where it's dripping. Again, comes back to me putting this little stand on a stand as I'm painting it. You can see even in this image or in this video here how it's literally dripping off the sides of this thing, almost filling up some of those gaps. But once you get that nice shine on there, the colors really stand out a lot more, when they're not looking quite as flat and as boring. The only problem with the polyurethane, of course, is that you can't really use a blow dryer on it. I've tried before, but something about it just doesn't really dry the same way, so you really just have to be patient and let it sit and dry all on its own. And it could take a long time. There's been ones that I've had to set them overnight, and because even after a couple of hours, it might still be a little bit tacky. But yeah, that's pretty much it there. I'm just going to make sure that any of the last minute drips and everything are off, and then he'll just have to sit overnight, and that's the final product there. It's going to take him a while to dry, but as you can see, it's a lot shinier. The guts look a little bit more like guts. But anyways, hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more crafts, be sure to like and subscribe, give that thumbs up, and see you in the next crafting video.